guys, and welcome back to my channel and for another weekly What I Watched. We are already in May, which is madness. So week 1 of May, let's get the old screen recorder from my Letterboxd on. Okay, so we ended off last week on the 2nd of May, which was the Sunday, with Voyagers. So on the Monday evening, the first day of the week, I watched a movie called Chick Fight. Now this one I believe is on Amazon Prime. Starring, if you want to know, Malin Ackerman, Bella Thorne, Alec Baldwin, Dulce Sloan, Fortune Feimster, Kevin Connolly. So we follow the character of Anna, who is a woman of a certain age. Life isn't really going how she would like it to. Things keep going wrong. And she has a best friend called Charlene, who is a police officer, who takes her somewhere hoping to sort of like open up new avenues to her, have a way of actually venting her frustration. It's basically a fight club for women. And when Anna gets there, she discovers that she's got a link that she never quite expected with this club. She comes into herself, and this movie follows her training to come up against basically Bella Thorne's character, who is the champion fighter in this fight club. So it's basically like, I'm not going to say like female Rocky because it isn't, because it's a comedy of sorts, but it's about her training to take this woman on and the lessons that she learned along the way. It was okay. It passed a couple of hours. I wouldn't say it was anything spectacular. Watching some of the action scenes in this, it was very obvious that people were like throwing themselves back before the punch landed, things like that. So the choreography of the fight scenes weren't that good in places. There was a lot of those slow motion sequences where women like were doing kicks in the air and all this sort of thing. If you're a Bella Thorne fan, she's a very beautiful woman. You probably will get a kick out of this, but I would say it's nothing more than average. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. On the following evening, I watched Things Heard and Seen, which is a new one also on Amazon Prime. Amanda Seyfried, James Norton. So this follows Amanda Seyfried's character. She is married. She has moved with her husband to a new city. He has got a job lecturing in that area, so she's kind of given everything up and gone with him. But when she gets to this specific house that they've moved to, she feels that there's something untoward in the house. There is something watching her. There is something not entirely explainable. So this movie has kind of supernatural elements to it, but also and mainly this movie follows her getting to know the real person that her husband actually is. She discovers all kinds of secrets, all kinds of lies. This was actually quite good. The acting in this was very good, which you do expect from Amanda Seyfried. She is fantastic. I would recommend this. I thought it was a nice little watch. I gave it a 3 out of 5, which is like kind of an average. I enjoyed this movie. So on the 5th, I watched this was over a couple of nights actually. This is a Spanish series on Netflix at the moment called The Innocent. So this is a Spanish series at the moment. I think it's possibly 8 parts. Each part's around 50 minutes long. It's on Netflix at the moment, and this follows a character called Mateo. I'll just set it up for you what actually happens at the beginning. He's in a nightclub. There's a bit of a scuffle outside. Not his fault whatsoever. Someone is picking on him. He shoves this person who falls and bangs his head off a rock and dies. Now Mateo goes to prison for this. Even though it isn't actually his fault, he goes to prison. So when he gets out with his fiancée, who he met at an earlier date, they're together, she's pregnant, they decide to buy a house. In the process of looking around this house, she gets a phone call, which she leaves the room to take. She says that it's work and she has to travel to Berlin, and the next day she leaves. And that starts just a whole spiral of just all sorts happening to this young man. He finds out his wife isn't where she said she was going to be, but the can of worms that this opens and where she is and who she's involved with is just mind-blowing. We follow a lot of different characters in this. We follow police officer story, we follow Mateo, we follow his fiance, we follow just other people that I don't want to even tell you about, but it's a fantastic series. I really would recommend this to you, to check that one out on Netflix, The Innocent. So the following evening I watched Right Okay. This is the new Netflix documentary called The Sons of Sam, A Descent into Darkness. So the Son of Sam case is pretty well known, and I have forgot the guy's first name, which is ridiculous. His surname's Berkowitz. Basically, he goes around killing a lot of young couples in cars, shoots them. People in the area are terrified for their lives. He is caught, but there's a journalist called Maury Terry, who this documentary is told from the point of view of, and he makes it an obsession to get to the bottom of, was this the one person on their own? Was someone else involved? There's all kinds of things he pulls into this, a lot of which are just, I suppose, his wonderings, are nothing proven. But things like the actual photo fit that was done of the son of Sam look nothing like the individual, but they do bear resemblances to other people he's connected to. So this journalist was absolutely convinced that he was not in on this on his own, and even down to satanic cults are involved. So this goes into a lot of detail like that. I really enjoyed it to start off with. I do feel it's well worth watching, it's interesting, but I felt that a lot of it was just conjecture. A lot of it was just, what if? There wasn't actually, I gave it a 3 out of 5. There wasn't actually a lot of proof. There was just, oh, well, this is interesting and this could be the case. So if you like sort of watching things where people are playing around with, well, this happened, so this is potentially the reason, you may enjoy it. It's very well made, very well filmed. But I did fall asleep twice. I have to admit, I have to add that. Maybe I was just knackered, but I would say watch it if you're a big fan of the true crime genre. If not, there are much better true crime documentaries out there to watch. So on the next evening, I watched Monster. This is a new one on Netflix at the moment. It's not true, it's based on a book, but it's very much taken from the kind of experiences these kinds of young men have dealing with the police force and the judicial system as a whole. So it follows, I'll just read here, it follows 17-year-old Steve Harmon. He's an honour student whose world comes crashing down around him when he is charged with felony murder. So he's implicated in this. It goes through his full court case, it goes through his experience in prison. Most of it's courtroom based, it's very drama based, it's not a thriller as such, it's quite slow moving. If you enjoy this kind of thing, it is really interesting to watch, but it is quite slow in a lot of areas. So if you want something that's fast moving, you're not really into drama, it might not be your thing. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was outstanding. I wouldn't say I would just rush out and recommend it to someone, but it's worth watching if you like that kind of thing. On to the 8th, right, so we got 2 movies in this night. I gave up waiting on my son being free to watch this. He's always either on a Switch, on Fortnite, or he's honest to God. So I thought, I'm going to watch this myself. So The Mitchells vs. the Machines is the new animation on Netflix, I believe, at the moment. This is fabulous, and the thing is, my son would have loved this. This follows a family called the Mitchells, obviously, and machines are taking over the world through technology. And we know everyone's got a phone in their face, or they're talking to a camera, or, you know, technology is a big part of our lives. And this follows this family, who are the only family left on Earth that haven't been taken or taken over by robots. I don't want to say too much. Well, it's a cartoon, I can't really spoil it. But this movie follows this kind of dysfunctional family coming together to try and prevent the machines succeeding. And along the way, sort of, we get to know some problems within the family dynamic. And as is always the case in these kind of movies and cartoons, we do solve a lot of those family dynamic problems. It's a very sweet movie. It's a very trendy movie. It's got like memes in. It's got like lovely little like superimposed childlike drawings in, like where she's where they're taking work that she's done in a notebook. It's got like real clips, pictures in. It's just done in a really trendy way that will appeal to youngsters of today. I loved it. There's a dog in it, which we've been saying it ever since. The robots are trying to work out what this thing is. It's a pug and it's really fat. And they're going, dog, pig, dog, pig, dog, pig, loaf of bread. And the way we saw that so funny is because Dobby, our dog, who needs to lose a few pounds, from the top, her body looks like a loaf of bread. So they couldn't figure out if she was a dog, a pig, or a loaf of bread. And Dobby also makes pig noises. She snorts. So it just cracked us up. So I would thoroughly recommend The Mitchells vs. the Machines. It's a lovely cartoon, really well done, really trendy, really touching, and really funny. So on the same evening, I watched a movie on, I believe, Prime. Oh, I'm really bad at remembering. Initiation. So I'm so over these kind of movies that's based around teenagers, like slashery type stuff. This follows teens at a college. Something happens to one of the girls in a room with some of the lads. I'll leave it to your imagination. Nothing is shown. We don't know for exact what happened. And suddenly lots of young men around the campus start to be murdered. We're trying to find out who's doing it. This individual is also now chasing some of the girls. It's basically a university slasher. Who is it that done this? I'm over this kind of movie. I don't think it added anything new. It's, if you like slashers and you like teenage slashers, check it out. The kills aren't particularly inventive. There's not a lot of thought put into them, but and bits of it's a bit, oh really? But what does it say? Witten University unravels the night a star athlete is murdered, kicking off a spree of social media slayings that force students to uncover the truth behind the school's hidden secrets and the horrifying meaning of an explanation point. Right, I've got one person on my list that watched it and they gave it a 1.5, so I think I gave it a 2. I gave it a 2. I wouldn't watch it unless you have nothing really better to be watching. Right, this next one. I've seen this advertised on Netflix for so long, but just haven't bothered. My Octopus Teacher. I was watching a UK TV show this week called Gogglebox, which I really love. If you're not from the UK and you're not familiar with it, it basically is just lots of normal people sitting in their home watching stuff that we've watched in the last week and reacting to it, and just we watch them intermingled with clips of whatever it is. And it showed My Octopus Teacher, and the little clips that it showed were just so heartwarming and were just so touching that I thought I have to see this. Now this has won a lot of awards. After years of swimming every day in the freezing ocean at the tip of Africa, this is ice cold water, and this guy doesn't wear a wetsuit. He does it in shorts. It's like Craig Foster meets an unlikely teacher, a young octopus who displays remarkable curiosity. Visiting her den and tracking her movements for months on end, he eventually wins the animal's trust and they develop a never-seen-before bond between human and wild animal. And it is what it says. He follows her. An octopus's life is roughly a year, and when an octopus lays eggs and the eggs hatch, generally the octopus will die. Disclaimer at the start of this, because I was like, oh my god, does the octopus die? The octopus dies at the end of this. I'm just going to tell you because I don't want you going into it thinking it's going to be a really sweet little thing and nothing horrible happens. I loved this, but at the same time I found it difficult, and let me try and explain why. I love nature documentaries, but I cannot bear the sections where it shows animals being killed. I know that's ridiculous, I know what happens, I know it's realistic, but I don't want to see a lion taking down a gazelle or a zebra and eating it. Don't want to see it. The best nature documentary I ever saw was about a dung beetle. That maybe sounds weird, but those little creatures and what they go through to have babies, and the mother seals herself inside this big ball as food for her child to eat when it hatches. I'm not talking about dung beetles, but honestly, it was such an interesting documentary, but nobody was getting killed in it. Well, there was a section where something was trying to dig the dung beetles up. That was horrible. I just wish we could have nature documentaries edited for those of us that don't want to see animals die. So there are a couple of scenes in this. Obviously at the end the octopus dies. It does do its full life cycle. There are a couple of really hairy scenes in the middle where it's like, oh no, that I found quite difficult because I thought, this guy has this bond with this octopus. Why is he sitting aside and letting this happen? Why is he not in there sorting this out? But you know how people that film don't do that? Well, I would struggle with that. But this little octopus knows him and reaches out its tentacle to touch his hand and stuff, and it's incredible, and it shows you little things that you would have never known about octopus and how they camouflage themselves and how clever she is, and it's a really heartwarming documentary. I would really encourage you to watch it, but there are a couple of scenes that are difficult, just to warn you if you're a soft spot like me. I gave it a 4 out of 5. And finally, last night I watched The Oak Room. Right, this won't be for a lot of people. I enjoyed it, 3 out of 5 for me. Let me tell you what it says. You're not going to believe what happens at the Oak Room. So this stars, let me get his name, RJ Mitty, is that right? Who plays the son of Walter White in Breaking Bad. He's excellent in this. During a raging snowstorm, a drifter returns home to the blue-collar bar located in the remote Canadian town where he was born. When he offers to settle an old debt with a grizzled bartender by telling him a story, the night events quickly spin into a dark tale of mistaken identity, double crosses, and shocking violence. So, I'll let that run out when it runs out. So, basically we have R.J. Mitty's character coming into a bar. He is not welcome in the area. He has taken off like 3 years ago, and in that time his father has died, and he hasn't even come back for the funeral. And this bartender was a good friend of his father's who has paid for the funeral, who has all his father's stuff stored in his basement, and he's not too happy at seeing this character come in his bar. He says, "You owe me money, I paid all this money, blah blah blah," and he offers to tell a story to repay the debt, which obviously the bartender's like, "Go away on, you can't pay me back with a story." But he tells the story anyway, and this movie follows that story being acted out. And we have a little bit of a twist in there. It's one that a lot of people may say is slow, that a lot of people may find boring, that not an awful lot happens. The story has one main event that happens that has a little bit of a twist in there. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the acting. I enjoyed the simple premise that it has. I think it's well worth checking out. Don't expect major happenings and major massive twists. It does have a little bit of a twist in there, but it's worth watching for the acting. And it was quite different. It was refreshingly different, and I enjoyed it for that. So yeah, I would recommend. 3 out of 5, I gave that one. So that is what I have watched this week. I don't think I'm watching any series or anything like that. I have one on my watch list called Fried Barry that I want to check out, which is apparently a bit odd, but well worth a watch. So yeah, I will catch up with you guys next week with what I've watched. If there's anything you've seen recently that you would recommend that I check out, let me know in the comments. I think our cinema's open in like 2 weeks. What's a real annoyance, I was going to swear, the cinemas in England and Wales and maybe Scotland open on the 17th of May. And my son is off school that entire week. There are school holidays and we could be going to the cinema. But no, our cinema's open the following week when he's back at school. So hopefully, all being well, the cinemas in Northern Ireland open on the 24th of May. So I, for one, cannot wait to get back out there and get some viewing done of new films at the cinema. So yeah, what are you looking forward to watching when the cinemas open again? Let me know below in the comments, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Over and out from Lisa Loves.